Hey guys, I am back from Atlanta, the Culture Collision Show, and I'm ready to give a recap and show some of my pickups. Stay tuned. Hello to all my sports card collectors, investors, all of my collectibles friends. How are you? I'm not sure if this is going to come out Sunday night or Monday morning. I'm still trying to figure it out. I just drove about 7 hours back from Atlanta today. Had an awesome time. Before I forget, if you are new here, please hit that subscribe, the like, the notification bell, all the things. It helps us to gain traction here on YouTube as we march on to 15,000 subscribers. We've got a little ways to go, just crossed number 14, but we're excited to have you here. Thanks for joining us. All right, first, guys, I'm going to show my main two pickups. I did have a few other pickups, but I'm going to save those for separate videos because I want to kind of work through what why I got it, etc. And there's more to the story. So I'm going to go through the two cards that I got. Both of these were from Steve, Flipping Steve YouTube channel. Kind of a funny story behind this first card. So this is a sealed flawless Joe Namath, 2018, I believe. And it's a patch auto, on-card auto. The flawless cards are just amazing. The white cards with the blue signature on this one, and then you've got the patch. The only knock on this card is that it's not a game-worn patch. But, I mean, outside of that, it's just a really cool card. I collect some of the Namath stuff. I don't have loads of it, but I would love to have more. And I really like these flawless football cards, and then also the 100 years flawless. I just like all that stuff. So I wanted to pick this up. This was at our local Raleigh show here, and Steve was with me, actually. I saw the card, but I was out of cash. Steve ended up seeing the card separately. He wasn't walking with me or anything. He bought the card, and then ever since, this is like 6 months ago, or yeah, something like that, 6 months ago, I've been hounding him for it. And so before the show, I was like, hey man, if you just want some liquidity and you want to, kind of break even on that card, I'll buy it from you. And he did. He did sell it to me. He threw a few extra bucks on it, but for the most part, it was basically what he had paid. So he gave me a good deal there. And then the other card I got from him is a classic Dale Earnhardt Sr. auto, on-card auto. This one is numbered out of 635, which it sounds like a lot, but Earnhardt Sr. passed away in 2001, obviously not signing, and there's not a lot of autos for him, pack-pulled autos. Yes, you can find, in-person autos that he did with the PSA DNA type slabs, but not pack-pulled stuff. It's not as easy to find, and so I wanted to try to get one of these. And Steve had one. Steve had picked up a couple, actually. He had two of them, so he sold me one at a good price. So I appreciate him helping me out. I've been kind of on the auto quest. If you watch my channel, you know how I roll. It's a Hall of Fame pack-pulled auto stuff and inserts and other things. But for the most part, I do a lot of auto shopping. Auto shopping? Not automobiles. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. I'm tired. To get fired up for the show on Friday before we went there, we stopped by the Georgia Aquarium and checked out albino alligators and freshwater eels. Didn't know there was such thing as freshwater eels until I saw them there. Very cool, very weird looking fish. Eel, is an eel a fish? Anyway, it doesn't matter. The Georgia Aquarium, I would highly recommend. Very, very good aquarium. And I lived in Florida for a long time where they've got a lot of nice aquariums. Georgia Aquarium was legit. As far as the exhibit hall goes, interesting setup. A basketball hoop. There was a basketball tournament, so they had the basketball thing all set up. I did not play in that tournament, but as I said in my first video, I wish that I had, and I'll try to play next year. I didn't know there was signups and all that, so I'll have to work on that for next year. As far as exhibitors go, who are the big exhibitors? Well, the center stage in the middle of the whole thing was eBay, and probably to try to educate people on the new authentication program that they have in place with CSG. And along those lines, the only grading company I saw out of the big four, PSA, BGS, SGC, CSG at this show was CSG. And maybe I just missed the other ones. But yeah, CSG had a booth there. They had people working it. And of course, they are now tied to eBay to do authentication. That's a huge deal. I mean, that alone is going to keep them very, very busy. So even if they are not getting a lot of submissions, which I still think they're they're going to get a lot of submissions, but man, they're going to be busy with that piece of business from eBay. So interesting to see both of them there work on the show. As I said too in the first video that I did, really great running into viewership and other content creators. A lot of content creators had tables at this show. On the other side, working as a dealer, I know for some they wanted to try out just trying to have people come up with their collections with the Pelican case and trying to deal from the other side of the table. I noticed that, and I can understand that because as a dealer, kind of having a table, there is probably some advantage to that. I don't know if there was a lot of trading happening. Of course, look, guys, it's a fairly big show. So do I know everything that was going on at this show? No. I've heard some people say like not a lot of sales or, that there were good sales. It probably just depends on what you had, what you were selling. Probably just depends on a variety of different factors. Some people probably had a great show. Some people maybe not as good, but that's going to be every show. And that's going to be the case. It kind of reminded me as far as the size of the room of Dallas. It reminded me of Dallas. Very good show, especially with it just being the second year for Prism God and those guys putting on this show. It is cool how they're just trying to add in new things. This is kind of a more of a well-rounded collectibles show too, to where they had sneakers, they had comic books, and they had some other things. So if they can kind of grow that out, build that out, and get vendors for more comic book vendors, more sneaker vendors, because that was the one thing. I mean, this was dominated by sports cards, but I'm sure there's also a lot of people too that would have loved to do other things, other types of collectibles. And so that'll be interesting to see kind of how that evolves. I would like to try to come to this show again, although I'll be honest, I was not a fan of the Atlanta traffic. The Atlanta traffic, and it wasn't even, we weren't even trying to get anywhere. It was like trying to get to dinner 10 minutes away, and it was just the way that the layout of the city just drives me nuts. Trying to drive there was not a good time. But fortunately, we were at the Sheraton, which is right across the street from the convention center, which, yes, that was convenient, but then getting to the convention center across the big highway was a chore in itself. It was like a labyrinth. So I wasn't really a fan logistically, but I think that's just Atlanta in general. And just kind of a weird, it's like all the roads were built like later on, like everything's weird there to where it's like no one had a plan. And now they're like, oh my God, the city's gigantic. We got to figure this out. That's what the highways remind me of. I just feel like it's a total mess. There were quite a few Marvel card collectors as well, which was interesting. I spent some time with them on Friday night at a trade night, kind of more of a private trade night, but it was interesting because there was a lot of longtime Marvel collectors. So it wasn't necessarily just people that had just learned about it in the last 6 months or a few months. It was people that have been collecting it like going back 10, 15, 20 years, going back to like 90 Impel, what I started with, and growing it out from there. So it's interesting kind of hearing their perspective. Of course, a lot of those folks, they're early in on everything, so they got it very inexpensive. And now, of course, pricing has moved up on a lot of the products and a lot of the parallels, but it is kind of a cool market to explore. So I'm learning a little bit more about that. I'll talk about it more. I'm not going to go heavy into Marvel cards because I'm just into so many different things, but I have identified a couple of spots that I like. So I'll talk about that more probably in a separate video. But yeah, that was a good time. It's really exciting when you dig into you've got the major sports in their cards, you've got non-sports, which there's a lot of really cool things there as well. And then you've got just kind of lesser known sports or lesser watched sports or whatever. There's just so much going on in the card market. From a hobbyist standpoint, from a collector standpoint, and even if you're playing the buy-sell game, there's always opportunities, little niche things. And even if you're operating on the lower end or the mid-tier or on the higher end, there's just stuff going on. Yes, of course, we have seen card prices come down quite a bit for a lot of things, not everything, over the last 12 months, but I think the hope is that you get kind of to more of a stabilized market to where you've got kind of little gains here and there, maybe little pops from, great play or whatever, but not the crazy, volatility. And I think that that's going to be really, really good moving forward. I do think that cards are going to have a place, and collectibles in general, just depending on the type of collectible. I believe it's going to evolve. I like how shows are evolving. It's funny too when you hear about like, the market's down and nobody cares anymore. You go to card shows and they're packed. So there is certain types of demand here. There's demands, there's pockets, there's pockets of demand. Not one show will tell the story, or not one card shop locally to you tells the story, or not one selling site, if they're, down on sales, tells the story. There's a huge ecosystem of things going on here, which makes it really fun to try to track all of it and gauge what's going to happen. Of course, we've got, as we talk about on the channel, there's a lot of macroeconomic things, global things that can have effects on on not just alternative investments like this, but traditional investments as well. So we'll have to kind of keep an eye on all of it, obviously. But guys, thank you very, very much for joining me today. It was good fun. I look forward to going back next year, and also just kind of adding more of these East Coast shows that might be easier to get to from where I am in North Carolina. Guys, have an amazing rest of your day. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.